Well, that was an interesting 5 games. Got a lot to cover today. My name's Sebastian, this is Vision Denial. We're in the road to MSI, and that was the 5 game banger of first seed. Oh, I did it again. First seed G2 versus 4th seed Schalke. And whoo! That was exciting. That was a lot of fun. I highly recommend watching this particular series. Like, a lot happens, and then sometimes not a lot of things happen, but a lot happens, and it's really good. So let's begin. Now, I don't have much to say on vision. Both teams have pretty solid vision. The vision denial is not great, but you win some, you lose some. But consistently, they were able to pull out vision on either side that was useful for them, and they were able to, take advantage of. The pick and ban is weird. Like, I wish that there was more variety within the first 3 games, and that they didn't have to attempt to mix it up to gain anything in games 4 and 5. Because at that point, that's when you usually would attempt to do a callback on something earlier. So, I've got mixed feelings regarding that. Some of these particular picks and bans were not great. Especially, when, Schalke decides to pick, a Darius into a Ash Braum lane for their second game. That was crazy. Why? There are decisions that are being made. There's, a heavy priority on a Darius that eventually gets banned, but, it's clear that there's definite ways to, outplay it. And, the lack of variety in bans also bothers me. Eventually there's some variety that's put through, but that's after, they realize that they needed to change something up. And I'm glad that eventually that was brought in, but it should have been a little bit earlier. You can't just take for granted that you're ahead in the series to just keep going at the same thing. I don't know. That's something that bothered me. And I think it's mostly due to the way G2 approached the whole thing. Execution-wise, I think that it's mostly okay. There's some hiccups here and there within both teams. More so with G2, but I think that's because G2 has an attitude issue. And, this channel has talked about it, especially with, Josh talking about how, they don't take things seriously until it's too late. And, granted, their Game 5 draft was chef kiss, but, why are you doing drafting challenges, Wonder, in Game 3? Why are you doing any shenanigans that can throw away your leads when you're, this close? Feels like a wasted opportunity. That being said, Schalke is incredibly good at, countering, doing any punishes that are needed. They have a very good sense of, early tempo leads and how to, absorb whatever's being thrown at them by G2. Which lets me to believe that, Gilius could be more than just a herbivore jungler, and I think this is just my gripe with the way that this particular meta is being played by many junglers. I have a slight tendency to prefer those who are more active early in than those that just farm. And I think it's because, regardless of how much it helps you in the team fights in the mid game, eventually you hurt your laners if you're not prioritizing assisting them, right? You put less pressure in the early game for neutral objectives, which means that it's harder for you to stack dragons later on. So, Gilius, you could do more. Really, you know that, right? You did in Game 4, I believe you actually did. But why are you leaning more on the, ladder? I've got my cat that wants me. to cover, and the Brazilian game was happening at the same time as this, so I'll get to that, watch those, and then get to that afterwards. Okay. I gotta admit though, G2's execution on a lot of things is brilliant. Wave manipulation, regardless if they have Baron or not, fantastic. They have great execution in terms of flanking. Awesome. They, for the life of me, will just kind of just go bananas on some of the stuff that like seems textbook to them just because. And then sometimes it's more obvious it's because they're trying to like leverage pressure so that they're able to gain advantages elsewhere. Like sometimes you look at something and it looks like Mickey X is just giving up his life for whatever reason, but it's not. He's just assisting them to make sure that they have lane priority in mid to get dragon, or that they're making sure that it delays whatever particular backing or timings that Schalke would have at that point. And so like it's fine. Granted, Mickey still gets caught a lot. I think this is something weird among some of the higher tier teams in Europe, is that the supports get caught a lot doing things. I wouldn't know why though. Like, do you think that if you were to have a better sense of your vision, that you would just not get caught? Seems like the simpler thing, right? Like you take your time, make sure to establish vision, make sure to that whenever you're moving somewhere that you're not doing so at the expense of you're like giving up gold, pressure, priority, timing, and tempo just because you wanted to assist a gank. Like, more often than not, neither of the junglers, neither of the supports here were caught up all that much. Sometimes they engage weirdly, but it didn't really matter all too much at the end of the day. It's still a trend that I see. Just let's roam up to mid, and then you get caught and you're dead. Or let's engage somewhere, but then they don't have all the setup done. This is not as big an infraction in this one, so it's fine. I'll let it slide. I don't have to let me slide anything, but like I'm not as bothered by it. What I am bothered by, however, is like the weird priorities that Schalke would put into. Schalke, you don't need to attack Wonder and only Wonder when you don't know where you're going to go with anything. You can put like fewer people to match what Wonder is doing. Like, there are times where they just send 4 people and then they lose 2 inhibitor turrets for just killing Wonder. That's not worth anything. He's playing Scion 4 out of 5 games. Is it 4 out of 5 games? That's crazy. Why is there so much repetition? 3. Yet 4. And do they play it in game 5 as well? No, they don't. But 4 out of 5 games he's playing Scion. What do you need to kill a Scion for? What do you, like, especially when there's no timings that are coming up. I gotta appreciate, though, neither of these teams are very timer dependent. Like, this is another thing that sometimes I wish that other teams would, like, capitalize on, but these teams weren't so timer dependent, and it's good. You know, happy and appreciated. Now, the game did go to 5 games, and I think that's primarily because G2 was goofing about. I wish they weren't goofing about, but they were. So, you know, next time, hopefully, they stop. They're going to be facing the winners of Europe's playoff tomorrow, Rogue versus Mad Lions, and they are the 2nd and 3rd seed. And from what I understood of the casters, they are, like, this is the head team. Like, nobody expected them to lose this series, and they almost did. So, like, buckle down and, like, try harder. Like, I don't know, maybe take it more seriously, which is weird because this isn't the same G2 as, like, the last 2 years. They got an ADC that's a lot more hardcore in Reckless, which Reckless, by the way, was playing phenomenally the entire series. I mean, that's a given. Uh, so you know, so was Limit from Schalke, by the way. Limit was doing incredible engages as a support. Neon also was doing pretty well. Granted, there's only so much you can do when you're in a team that's either ahead or behind, and then you're literally the target of everything. Although, like, Jinx Rocket Steel for the Dragon to delay G2's abilities to do anything, that was pretty good. Pretty good. What else? What else? Honestly, this is the series that I needed that like have the least that I would talk about. Like it's a banger. Like there's a lot of cool team fights to analyze in more of a finicky detail. Like a lot of the teams outplay each other. I'm very fun. Game 5 is very fun. Casters talk about how like the G2's composition is very low damage, and I mentioned this, but like, and like they did eventually lose out in damage near the mid game, but I also wrote down that they need that like Schalke's composition needed to close out before it went to late game, and then whoopoo, they're it doesn't matter if they're out damaged if they can't get through the healing or the tank. It's a fun game to look at in terms of seeing stylistic differences, because G2 definitely took a composition that is very unorthodox, like it's not traditional, and applied it so that they knew they would just stall out and play to their strengths to make sure that they usually are very capable of keeping track of the timers. They're very capable of setting up for their neutral objectives. They have a better sense of control of the wave manipulation. So even if they're losing in team fights, they're rarely losing out in everything else. Like there are moments they very close. They could have lost a fight and then lose the game, but like they walk that fine line that I think a team like G2 is only capable of. But I think I'm not a fan of the fact that they consistently walk that line. If I was to give a grade, Schalke is going to be facing FNatic again. I honestly think that they might lose against FNatic. That really depends if they clean up their pick and ban phase. Like, if they have a better set of pick bans more consistently, they might egg out wins more often, but they suffer from the same issues that SK did, where they're more passive than they are active, and I give advantages always in this particular meta to the team that's the most active. I give Schalke like a C plus B minus, and I give G2 a B, like pretty solid B. They haven't blown me away because they keep goofing around, but if they stop goofing around, you could be going to the A. I'll give them a B plus. They have the best wave manipulation I've seen so far. B plus. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. We'll have more as soon as we can. There's a lot of them on the 27th. There's 5 playoff series on the 27th. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.